We speak. Our words. We listen.
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 This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 30th of March 2025, which is Mother's Day in the UK. The first post is from Robbie Music, who is an amateur musician, enjoyed playing music at open mics and music jams. And I've shared a post, which is part of the Facebook page that he's created. And it says, I am an amateur musician trying to improve my skills. I welcome constructive criticism.
I enjoyed visiting Robbie's site a couple of weeks back, and what I enjoyed about it was music, the choice of material. There were some tunes there that I hadn't heard in a long time, and I was quite intrigued to hear played as well. A lot of seafaring type songs. Well, there wasn't a lot, but there was a few. But I just like that kind of songbook, and it's good to hear somebody playing that kind of music. So I enjoyed it a great deal.
What I like about Robbie's page, and music in general, is like music you feel, I feel that when I listen to music, because I like music a lot, it's one of my favourite kind of pastimes is listening to music, and it feels sometimes good, sometimes not so good, depending on what mood you're in, as it kind of takes you somewhere, it takes you on a journey. And to see someone play it, be somewhere live, or see someone play it, doing the actual, it's fascinating to watch, it's fascinating to hear, and it's just great how things like this exist. And it's good that there's opportunities for people to display that kind of stuff. The next post is from Pandas Online, who's an author who's promoting acceptance of neurodivergence and support based in the UK. The website called neurotypicalsdon'tjugglechainsaws.co.uk. And what they've shared is about Mother's Day, which is happening today in the UK, because I know that Mother's Day differs all around the world. So it says, Happy Mother's Day to all the incredible mums, caregivers and safe adults out there. And a special shout out to those who have been called mum in meetings, emails, reports and waiting rooms, even when your name was known. We know it can feel like your identity disappears behind the title. You're a whole person who is advocating, navigating systems and making a difference. So, today, we're celebrating you, and your name is you. You matter too.
It made me laugh.
I have heard that word being used for other people. No, mum, or I'm sure I've heard someone say, it might be my sister saying, my work mum, because it's someone in our work who's older and has more experience at the job. And it's done as an affectionate term, but also as respect. But she also calls an older friend, not that much older, but an older friend, Ma. You know, the term that's used, the Scottish term that's used for mother. And it's because of their older and more experience and just the sort of older person of the friendship. And it's that term that means such a lot when people use that. If they're not talking about their own mother, their own mum, they're kind of using it as an affectionate term for people that have, you know, out of respect, out of love, out of friendship. And as a comment's been saying, mothering is a lot greater than normally perceived, and shared mothering. The next post is from National Autistic Society, and it's a report launch called Empower Autistic Travel. The aim of the research, which began in April 2024, was an in-depth exploration of autistic people's experiences of travel and transport to gain a better understanding of barriers to cultural safe travel, the impact those barriers cause, and possible solutions to make services more accessible and autism friendly. The research question was, how can we address the most significant challenges experienced by autistic adults using trains, buses, taxis and similar forms of transport in the UK? And they continue by saying, we know that this is an important topic for many autistic people. Yet we found a distinct lack of quality research addressing this. And they've got they've got research overview and full report. But what they say is, we wanted to capture the experiences of as many autistic people as possible. We were also keen to hear from parents and carers and friends and family members of autistic people. It was essential to work closely with transport providers too. Throughout the project, we gained a lot of insight through surveys, interviews, focus groups and workshops. We worked with a co-design group of autistic people who we consulted with at each stage of the project. The group helped to steer the project, make decisions, review draft documents and prioritise. And the project has been made possible thanks to generous funding from the Motability Foundation. And the Motability Foundation funds, supports, researches and innovates so that all disabled people can make the journeys they choose.
Some links on that post take you to the autism.org.uk National Autistic site, and you end up on a page called Advice and Guidance, Topics, Leisure and Going Out. So they the report appears to have created some advice centres on going to the theatre, playing sport, going on holiday, going to museums, Christmas, bonfire night and fireworks, and going to the cinema. And if you pick any one of those, there's tips. Some of them go back to 2020. So I'm not entirely sure whether the website has been updated with the research. Let's be a bit franker about this, shall we, from the way of autistic radio goes. Nicola has been interviewing me for a podcast series, Mumbai to Goa by train. So the idea that autistic people are entirely held back from travelling and using public transport needs to be tempered with the idea that, yes, we can. We just need helping and enabling. So at one side, we've got podcasts saying, this is an autistic person speaking to another autistic person about experiences where they travel the world. And then we've got an autism organisation that is also at the other end of things, almost embedding the idea that we are too disabled to travel. And the reality lies somewhere in between, I'm guessing.
Who do we think that was aimed at, this National Autistic Society project? Because it's really quite alienating. It seems very academic. And so I'm assuming it's aimed at those communities. Because I find, like, I just give up after a couple of paragraphs when they get as large as this.
I think, from what I've seen, it was regarding more about learning disability aspect of autism, I think, or people with a learning disability and autism. But then it's a National Autistic Society, so I'm unsure. So I think there's a bit of that to it, and that's why it's probably presented in a certain way. And that's why it's probably limited the sort of scope. Because we know that the autism, just giving a great example, Jules has travelled the world, certainly a large part of it. And given, podcasts from Nicola has been done about that, and a lot of stuff has been talked about on even this particular podcast as well, these live broadcasts. So I think that's why things are worded the way they're worded. But I'm unsure, but it does seem that certainly organisations and charities, when they're describing something relating to autism, it always seems very limiting in how they're describing it and how they're approaching it, which kind of goes against the grain of many autistic people.
I took part in a survey a couple of months back related to transport and travel that was circulating amongst people. I think I got it from Morris. They took my details, called me up, had a Zoom chat for an hour, got £40 voucher for Sainsbury's.
I feel like I'm just being a bit like obtuse here, but like surely like the biggest challenges to autistic travel are like service failures, schedule changes, service changes, and bad smells, that kind of thing. It's like surely just improve the public service network and everybody will get on a bit better and save your money on your research.
You're right. A lot of this seems simple enough. Improve the service and things will be a lot better. But then again, a lot of the barriers in my autism in public transport is noise. And not just that, it's about layout of the actual vehicles. Like, for instance, Glasgow Underground, the way the vehicles are made, the way they're set up, it's like you're facing to somebody else on the other side of the train. And that was so uncomfortable. And some trains feel like that. When I go on a train, I always go somewhere where it's sitting, it's just two seats on its own, so I don't face anyone. Unless it's someone I know, that's different. But that's what autistic people want, or a lot do, is just make the service better and more adaptable, more affordable, and certainly not smelly. And the thing about machines, the ticket machines at railway stations now, they may come in handy in a lot of ways. They're actually a hindrance in a lot of ways. Like, they don't do concessions for a start because they can't. And I actually wouldn't, I think it must have been a period where I didn't have a concession pass. I actually tried to use one of the machines. And I found it complicated. Someone actually had to show me. Even the instructions on the thing itself didn't seem clear enough. So there's things like that as well. But things are getting more automated. You're not dealing with people. Even though dealing with people is a hard thing. But it's easier sometimes when you're dealing with a service, like a train conductor or bus driver even, than a machine itself, because you can't reason with a machine if it goes wrong. And that's just another stress factor. The next post is from the Autistic Poet, and this is where I was relating to something else that was about public transport, and it's about the same thing, and it was shared by Learning Disability today. So I think I'll just share it because it kind of relates to a previous topic we've been discussing, a very pressing one. It's edited by Alison Bloomer, who is editor of Learning Disability Today. She has over 25 years of experience writing for medical journals and trade publications. Subjects include healthcare, pharmaceuticals, disability, insurance, stock market, and emerging technologies. She's also a mother to a gorgeous 13-year-old boy who has a learning disability. And what she shared is about a new report highlights how problematic independent travel is for some autistic people. And it says that nearly 2/3 of autistic people experience distressed behaviour or sensory overload when they travel on public transport, according to a new report from the National Autistic Society. The year-long project, funded by the Motability Foundation, aimed to understand the barriers autistic people face when they travel and make recommendations to make transport services more accessible and more autism-friendly. It found that nearly 9 in 10, 87%, autistic people experience sensory discomfort or overload on public transport, and over 4 in 5, 81%, feel anxious or unsafe outside the home or in public. Autistic respondents reported that barriers to travel included being anxious about travel even before their journey starts, 71%. Distressed behaviour or sensory overload while travelling or when reaching their destination, 62%. Worrying about getting to medical appointments easy and on time, 52%. And missing out on accessing hobbies and interests, 46%. The report also highlights the challenges autistic people experience on trains, buses, taxis and ride shares, including feeling anxious or unsafe outside the home in public, 81%. Strangers being close or seated beside them, 86%. Unexpected delays and cancellations, 85%. And feeling rushed by others, 76%. Everyday challenges that autistic face when travelling. Dr. Judith Brown, Head of Autism Knowledge and Expertise at the National Autistic Society, said, "These findings really highlight the everyday challenges that autistic people face. Thousands of autistic people have told us that independent travel is either hugely problematic or impossible. With changes to the environment and improved information, journeys would be more predictable and comfortable. With better recognition, understanding and empathy towards autistic people from transport professionals and the general public, journeys will feel far safer." There are some fantastic examples of good practice and transport support available. We need to expand on these and, even more importantly, create societal change in attitudes towards difference. By working together to understand challenges for autistic people and facilitate positive change, autistic people can make comfortable journeys and improve their quality of life. The report includes recommendations for the transport industry and the public to help create a society that works for autistic people, including improved support includes easily recognisable dedicated support staff and support points at stations. Accessible information such as clear signs, maps, visual instructions and advance notice of any changes. Sensory adaptation such as quiet spaces, sensory regulation tools, including ear defenders and information on screens, as well as audio announcements. Training for all staff to improve understanding of autism. Improve planning and advance notice of any changes. Chelsea Fleming, Innovation Manager at the Motability Foundation, added, "We are proud to have grant-funded this research from the National Autistic Society on the challenges autistic people face when making journeys. Importantly, this research focuses on the lived experience of autistic people to illustrate the issues they face when travelling and makes recommendations for improvement. User research like this, led by organisations and people with a deep understanding of the issues, is vital to unlocking accessible travel for all."
Someone in the chat saying, "This is me, city life is just too intense," and I really relate to that as well. Like, travelling just takes and the daily sort of travel that I do just takes so much of my energy. I feel like I could manage so much more if I was just having a wee walk between places. And when I was younger, I used to end up walking ridiculous miles to avoid having to be on public transport and stuff, or cycle them. Like, hate it. And I hate driving as well, even though I can drive. Yeah, I feel like, if you move your house plants around the house, it's not good for them. Plants like to stay in one place, and I feel a little bit like that myself. Slightly like.
Yeah, there's not much within walking distance anymore. And this is this definition of the word travel. They're using it in this context to get you from A to B in order to function as a person within a society. So we used to have local banks and local everything nearby within walking distance, or maybe even cycling distance if you want to get into using that tool. And they're all gone now. So you really have to plan a major journey to another part of the city. And I agree with Nicola there about driving. I drive. I've got a licence, but I hardly use my car. It's only there for emergencies. And even then, I live by a main road and it is intense out there. And it's just overwhelming to me now. Maybe I'm just older and more tired. I have to think twice about going out, whether I'm up to it, whether it's safe. And if they do any roadworks here, I just avoid it, because if it's single lane, I can't stand sitting in traffic. And it's not impatience, it's utter panic. So I wish it was within walking distance, a lot of things, because walking's great. But I don't know about this adaptation thing about, creating all these things that help you survive it, you know. It feels like a cop-out to a certain extent.
I think it's about being accommodating to as many people as possible. And it's a very hard thing to do. But sometimes there's just a lack of understanding. And it's like, it's not just about how things are run in terms of the setup of it. It's about the scheduling of it. It's about availability of it. And that goes beyond autism. I mean, public, like bus services, for instance, it's like, you want to go somewhere and you can't because they don't provide it at a certain time of day or a certain time of night. And that's excluding people. And that's why there's campaigns out there, in fairness, to try and change in how public transport is actually run. Because at the moment, most of it in the UK is run to make profit. And if it doesn't make profit, they don't run it. But public transport, in many people's opinion, including mine, shouldn't be done to make profit. Because somebody without a car, someone without their own transport, I feel is entitled to some kind of public transport to be available. I know it can't be available all the time, but it should be available reasonably well. And it's just frustrating that many people feel kind of stranded because they haven't got the service that's needed. Because of things are done by money as well, the standard of it is pretty poor. Like, you know, it's noisy, buses are noisy trains, some are very old and smelly, and obviously there's this sensory thing about smells. Sometimes the lighting can be too bright, it can be, it's all sorts of things. You know, when I travel, I need to have, I mean, it said, it was included in the report and the article that's read about ear defenders. My ear defenders is basically kind of, you know, listen to music. And I need to do that now. Even though there was a time in my life I didn't. You see, if I don't do it now because I'm not used to it, it's quite intense sitting on a bus or a train without it because all these background noises, even they don't need to be that loud, they just need to just be there. It can just be people talking quite quietly and they could be far down the other carriage or wherever I am and you can still hear this sort of wee noise and it's just quite annoying. It's just because you're used to, because the senses is quite, you know, it's strong and it's just so sensitive to so many things, like noise and smells and stuff. So there's a lot to take in. And it's just, sometimes when these sort of reports come out, it's like they're adapting because they feel sorry. Or that seems to be the sort of approach. It shouldn't be, it's just being, doing the right thing for everybody, make sure that everybody is accommodated, or as many people as possible is accommodated. That's the right thing to do.
I think somebody who took the time to write a long comment on this probably takes that whole report and concertinas it into one long paragraph. They say, I struggle with using buses. I struggle with being in crowded spaces when I'm not occupied. I struggle with planning a journey that requires more than one bus. I struggle with a 24-hour clock. Lack of timetable at bus stops is also a problem. I find my way around visually, so would struggle to know where to get off. I'm anxious about when to get off on a return journey. I'm frightened of getting stranded. I have no way to get back if I miss the last bus. I cannot and do not use phones because I can't cope with the demands and unpredictability of the phone calls. Therefore, I cannot use a taxi. Even if I could, I'd be concerned that they would not take cash or exploit me by not taking the quickest route. I'm concerned about asking for help, as I may be harmed if I have an autistic meltdown. Buses are expensive and not available evenings or Sundays where I live. So, if they'd just asked that one person, I think they would have probably been able to frame their research just through that experience.
The next post is from Brightfire CIC, and they're a non-profit organisation. Mental health services for autistics and ADHDers, diagnosed or self-identified clients welcome. And they've shared a picture of someone cuddling a dog. And it basically says, dog hugs self-care.
I've got a dog, she's like turning 1 and I'm kind of still learning about her, like learning what she likes and stuff. And she's like pretty affectionate. It's quite nice. And I'm just like, yeah, I think that you get your own sort of language with your dog. You make your own connection and stuff. And it's like any relationship, it's like you've got, don't do stuff that annoys them and vice versa, hopefully.
The next post is from Embrace Autism, which is a mental health service, science website and diagnostics centre. Research-based information and empowerment by autistics for autistics. Embrace your advantages. And what it's about is about autistic burnout. Autistic burnout is a serious but often misunderstood experience. So over the next 15 days, I'll be sharing powerful and practical tips straight from the ultimate guide to autistic burnout. This book, written by autistic authors with lived experience, provides essential strategies for recognising, recovering from and preventing burnout. Whether you're currently struggling or want to learn how to support autistic loved ones, these daily tips will offer real actionable advice. And it provides the link below. But one of the tips that's being shared today from Ali Anderson's Autistic Burnout is that you can still be successful while also honouring your unique needs with proper accommodations. Meaning resting isn't failure.
What is the term for that feeling of exhaustion that just gradually creeps up on you?
I'm unsure. Burnout is when it completely happens, I suppose. There is a word, but I can't think of it at the moment. It's good to know, or good to see, or recognise the signs that it's coming. And it's good to, look at tips and read advice. It's about looking after yourself. I think, in general, life is stressful. It's just things are hustle and bustle. You must do this, you must do that, and there's all these things you are being told you must do because you have to, because that's the way things are. And it's just trying to, especially from a autistic perspective, when you've riled yourself up to complete something, because I'm a kind of person that feels that I need to complete the task that I've planned. Although I've become more disciplined in terms of not doing too much at once and maybe do it over a period of days. And I can remember actually spending days actually getting that wound up without actually doing anything because it was stressing me out and burning me out even just thinking about doing it. But then when you actually do it and when even when it's not complete and you're doing it gradually because you've managed to kind of discipline to do things gradually, take your time, it's actually beneficial. That's kind of one example of potential burnout. The next post, which may be the final post, is from Neurodivergent Lou, who's a blogger finding a place in a neurotypical world. And I've shared a presentation, and it's called 7 Ways Not to Respond to an Autistic Meltdown and What to Do Instead. Number 1 is, during an autistic meltdown, it is not the time to tell someone off. Number 2, during an autistic meltdown, it is usually best not to ignore the person. Number 3, during an autistic meltdown, do not take away items used to regulate. Number 4, during an autistic meltdown, don't try to rationalise or bargain with the person. Number 5, during an autistic meltdown, don't shame someone or tell them how they should act. Number 6, during an autistic meltdown, don't touch the person unless agreed. And during an autistic meltdown, don't forget your own needs.
I was writing there in the text, how does this apply to an adult or someone who's late diagnosed? Because I can remember back in my 40s and certain temp jobs that I had, some of the situations I was having where I would need a break or sometimes even just walk out may have been meltdowns. There's a lot of stressful factors involved, like domestic and tiredness and lack of sleep and lack of communication at work, but it was often, and also using public transport, where again it would be like jump off the bus and then you're late and all that stuff. So I suppose a meltdown is a lot more serious though, where you're in need of some kind of care. Yeah?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just thinking about that just now, meltdown in relation to me is I'm thinking of a panic attack, because it's just everything's just, it's just too much taken on, so it's like a panic attack, and it seems like an attack. Yes, can also be a rage as well.
We can all get a wee bit comical about, when we get annoyed with certain things and people, how we will go off into little strops and tantrums. That's me using polite words. So I put that word rage in there because that's quite an extreme form of that. That's when, you're almost uncontrollable. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, and I can see how that can happen. I don't know if I've done that. I probably have. But there must be times where I just roared. Maybe slammed something down or had a right good shout at someone. It must have happened. Because I'm very irritable. But it's not just me being irritable. Sometimes other people have been unreasonable to you. And it just creates this sort of kind of situation. So it's different people.
I like what you say about the situation because, yeah, you kind of make it by accepting it. And sometimes panic and rage can be two sides of the same coin. When you're in a real panic, you can maybe get a wee bit aggressive if you're not allowed or able to escape, to improve the situation, to be somewhere else. The worst panic attacks I've had are in locked rooms, public events. It's like getting out itself seems like it would be an extreme effort and a hassle for everyone concerned. And so when it comes to it, you end up causing a bit of a fuss. Do you see what I mean?
I'd say the word has colloquial meanings as well as something that's probably quite specific somewhere. I try to read the use of the word for a period when my emotions are out of my control. My behavior, my actions are out of my control. I've lost the ability to communicate. So I'm melted down to such a degree that I can't do a lot about what's happening. Now, I'd have to say I don't experience that in my life as an adult now in the same way that I can relate to experiencing it when I was maybe teenage or younger, though it has happened. Rage has been part of it. We use the word colloquially to say something was overwhelming. And we might even say I had a mini meltdown or I want to avoid a meltdown. That's just people using language, and we should be allowed to use a big word like that. Even though, people use a big word like awesome to describe a sandwich, when the real idea of awesome is you are in such awe from the experience that you are bowed down by it. You are in awe. However good a sandwich is, I really don't think a sandwich can reach that level of awe. But what it can do in a colloquial sense is it be part of our society. So if you use it in a certain intonation, it's fine. We need to be cautious sometimes about using words inappropriately, but we also need to accept that words in different places have their own nuance.
That was a great conversation. We've come to the end of it tonight. We've kind of gone through quite a few number of things, as we generally do on the Facebook discussion. So thanks everybody for taking part, being involved. And of course, thanks to the people that create these posts that were shared to create these discussions. And thanks to everyone who's listened to us tonight and provided some comments that were shared as well. So this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 30th of March 2025, which is part of 555 Special Voices Conversation, which is here every Sunday, UK time, and I look forward to doing again next week. So thanks again, and good night, and over back to Jules.
Thanks, Harry. This doesn't take long. It's the meeting that we have for Autistic Radio out in the public and Autistic Association, the charity behind us. A quick reminder, we're here at 4:44 PM, Greenwich Mean Time, UK time, for a drop-in. Any podcast has the link, emails have the link, so people are invited to come and join us for the 4:44 without any ceremony. Text in to a conversation, or maybe even put your voice in there. That's normally the place that people start before they join us for the 555. So we have plenty of spaces in our studios for people to join us at the 555 when Harry's speaking, put the voice out there. But obviously, if people are willing to stay over on Facebook or LinkedIn or the other places that we're out there and comment, that's fine too. I often say how busy we are at Autistic Radio. This time of year is tax time. Some of our members are rather busy. The big thing that happened this week, regular listeners will be aware of. Being an autistic person occasionally puts themselves up as some kind of advocate and then pushes that further to be somebody who volunteers to enter a large behaviourist conference here in the UK and give them a piece of our minds, our collective minds, the different things that you have sent to me, to News at Autistic Radio, and the things that were immediately on my own mind as an individual. That's a big deal. It would appear that not many of the advocacy group are yet willing to take the role that is some kind of conciliatory role, and I don't blame them. I benefit from Stop the Shock. I benefit from Ban ABA, because the background of protest that creates, to not let people off the hook of the history and to keep it in the minds of the people who are trying to be more progressive going forward, that's a real tool in the tool bag of somebody when they go to speak to an organisation. It makes them desperate to find an alternative, and that's where we have them now. We have cooperation from some of the people within that organisation. So as long as everyone keeps the pressure up, then there's also avenues for change there. So I want to thank everybody out there who is openly and frankly discussing both the history of ABA and behaviourism, but also examining its current usage for the work that they're doing. You have gone before me, and I'm trying to pick up some of the threads behind you. We're not going to stop the discussion of ABA. It's not something that was just a fad or a temporary part. It was actually one of the intrinsic things that we decided to do as a group. I have to say there are differences with the ABA group from some of the other autism professionals that we have dealt with in the past. Because they, to some extent, are on the back foot, they're more receptive in some ways as well, which is an irony. In the past, we've been treated to a lot of tokenism by the so-called progressives. We found out recently that the so-called progressives had removed one of the presentations that we created for them from one of the conferences that we were invited to speak at, because the so-called progressives found what we say a little bit challenging, too near the bone, too truthful for them. That's where you are in advocacy. A lot of the time, you're banging your head against doors as they close. So if we have any kind of opening to speak to any kind of professional, we will take it. However easy it is for other organisations to use us cynically, we'll just keep our eyes open. We have a couple of podcasts coming up. We're going to be speaking this Tuesday as a group with a researcher from Ireland, part of the psychiatry faculty. And that follows on from a conversation we had with Aoife McTiernan, one of the conversations that has ignited interest because of its controversial nature amongst the ABA group. So this other researcher is going to talk about their research with the group. And if that goes well, we'll put that out of a podcast for you too. We have another podcast coming up, another recording coming up with a person who speaks against ABA because they have an alternative called floor time, an alternative to some of the things which we see as training that happens in different parts of the world. Floor time is something that is put out as a very child-centered, down on the floor, at eye level with the child level kind of support that isn't something that has caused controversy amongst those who know in autism what we should be looking for as best practice. And they're also speaking with somebody who has a long history of working to create an ABA school, but also is quite willing to talk out about their reservations about ABA. So that's a rather balanced conversation that we've got coming up to record with those two people. In general, we're not looking for many more voices to come back from the professions at the moment because we're consolidating what we want as autistic people. So if you're an autistic person who wants to come and speak either on the subject of ABA or any other subject, then I would encourage you to take this time to come forward now because we're going to be concentrating much more on the autistic voice over the next little while. So speaking to the members, many of whom are the officials of the charity themselves, has what I've been saying fitted what you're trying to achieve as a group? Am I on the right level? Can you give me some kind of indication that I'm not screwing it up?
I completely agree with the stuff that you're doing. Thanks for the update, Jules. Great work. I know there's been a lot happening and there's a lot to take on, so yeah, I'm very happy with the progress we're making and the direction we're taking.
I think the most important thing I need to ask people, is there anybody who is objecting to us having this dialogue with what an awful lot of autistic people see as the enemy? I know that's a rather childish way of looking at it because, you know, the world's more complicated than that. But is there anybody who is actually saying we should not be having this discussion, this open thing that we've been looking forward to? Well, look, as always, if you don't want to speak out now, I can see nothing in the text, but speak to me gently, speak to me quietly. And if I'm going in the wrong direction with this, I'm willing to shear it off and change in another direction.
Autistic Radio is about us, it's for us, and it's from us. Autistic Radio is about you, it's for you, and it can be from you. We have every single Sunday drop-in, 4:44 PM every Sunday. That's not live, that's us getting together, us talking, community. Every Sunday, Harry leads a 5:55 PM, a discussion around the Facebook page that he creates. Involve yourself by suggesting what we should talk about next. Share it with Harry. And then, the bigger picture. Advocate. Use us. Speak to the world. Your project, your idea, your enthusiasm. We have a whole range of different programs that will fit what you want. As far as listening goes, there's some challenging stuff out there. Because amongst the identity, the entertainment, and the community, we also make serious programs with autism professionals, challenging their ideas and bringing what you say in other spaces to them. A lot of those are difficult listens. But it's a holistic gathering. It comes all together. Autistic Radio is very varied. We need a favour. To encourage us, we need you to share us. When you share us, you give autistic people power. When you share us, you make us impossible to ignore. When you repost on LinkedIn and Facebook and anywhere else, you're advocating for everybody in the autistic community. So pick the things that you're happy with and get them out there. So thank you. Thank you, thank you. Thank you from all of us.